Pieta's been building handcrafted firearms, black powder and center fire alike. Known for their classic reproductions, true masterpiece renditions of the sidearms once worn by outlaws, lawmen, and those who tamed the West. Pieta, history perfected.
This is called an olive woolly bugger. It has caught more trout and other species of fish all over the world than any other fly, and I'll show you how to tie it. We're going to take some thread. I like black thread or olive, works well. We're going to start it up here at the eye of the hook. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap back toward the bend of the hook, and that thread is just going to cover over itself, and we're just going to cut that tag end off. Normally when I'm fishing a bait fish pattern, if there's a lot of materials there, it's going to want to float on you. So let's put some weight on it. I've got a pair of lead eyes here we're going to put on right behind the eye. And we're actually going to tie it on the bottom of the fly. Now what's going to happen with that, it's going to cause the hook to ride up like a jig. If you ever seen a crappie jig or a bass jig, how the hook rides up, that's going to work real well in a trout stream because this thing is going to drag right on the bottom. And if you don't have that hook pointing up, you're going to be hung up all the time. Another good point is that this type pattern can be mistaken for a bait fish that's called a sculpin or a darter, and they'll get right on the bottom and scoot around right on their belly. So this is what we're going to let this thing do, is scoot around on the bottom. First we're going to run our thread back, and I like running mine back about halfway. We're going to take a piece of olive marabou, really soft. It's going to have a lot of motion in the water, and I'm just going to stroke that down, and we're going to make the tail roughly the same length of the body. In other words, the length of the hook here from the eye to the bend. I'm just going to measure that. We're going to lay that feather down right at the juncture of where I stopped my thread at midway through the shank of the hook. Pin it down with about 3 or 4 wraps, and I'm going to bring my scissors in and just clip that off. That would catch fish right there just because of the motion, but we're going to bulk it up. A little piece of chenille, which is just yarn. This happens to be variegated. You could use dark olive would work, or light olive. I like a little more a darker fly, and in most of the streams that I fish, it seems to work well. I'm going to measure that off with the same distance from the thread to the eye of the hook. I'm just going to lay that on top. Going to wind that down. We're going to tie it all down here. Going to go back then to that same spot where I stopped. Pin our chenille down out of the way, and I'm going to take a strung hackle. These are hackles that are just sewn in together. You can select the one that looks about right. We're going to take and tie it in by the point. We're just going to lay that on top then. We're tying that point of that feather in. I'm going to work my thread right back to the back again, make sure it's pinned down in that same position. Then I run it back to the front, right behind the eyes. Next up, we're going to take and form our body just by wrapping away from us with a chenille, one right after another. We want to make those wraps touch all the way behind the eyes. Or on these dumbbell eyes, you can wrap it, go around the dumbbell, and then back around, making a figure 8 with that chenille. That's going to make this big woolly head on the front of that woolly booger. With that bulk up there, it's going to push more water as it goes along, and that provides vibration to the fly when it's going through. These trout can feel vibration, movement, and not only see, but they also feel that stuff. We get a hold of our hackle, and we're going to wind it away from us up under. What's going to happen there, those little hackles are going to start sticking up. As you see there, when I'm winding away, they come up there, and those are going to look like little pectoral fins, or in other words, it's adding that movement to the fly. I wrap up behind the eyes there of the fly, then I'm going to take my thread and wrap just behind that hackle. What's happening there is I'm pinning that hackle down. 3 wraps are enough. Come in with the scissors, snip that hackle off. Then we're going to take our thread and just finish it off. And I'm going to zigzag my thread through that hackle. What's happening there, I'm pinning that hackle down because these old teeth on these rainbow and brown trout are sometimes very large. They'll come in and they'll just rip that hackle right off. But if you run that thread through there, it gives it a little more strength. I'm going to come right across the eye of the hook here, and I'm wrapping around there 3 or 4 times. Taking this nifty little gadget here, it's called a whip finisher. All it does is just tie a 1/2-inch knot around. We're going to lay that bend of that thing on this thread, hook up, let it rotate. As you can see, it moves around on the axis there, and that pulls that thread right down to the eye of the hook. We're going to wrap 4 times, slide it off the back, pull it through. 1 more time, hook it in your whip finisher, let it rotate, roll around, go around the eye of the hook, tilt it down, pull it out, snip your thread, and that is a fish catching machine right there. There's the olive woolly bugger.